right about now. And we are going to get...
What about the Book of Faces?
The Book of Faces? We're going to go live in Book of Faces. All right. Don't worry.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We're going to start right about... What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete.
And we're coming to you live from a couple places on the internet. We are live on Crowdcast. We're live on YouTube. Maybe we're live on Facebook. I honestly do not know. But maybe you're listening to us later on SoundCloud or Stitcher or other things that start with an S. I don't know. Honestly, you could be listening.
Only S stuff, though. That's the only place
stuff.
we
We're
are.
only
Yeah,
on
yeah.
S places. Come on.
Yeah.
But wherever it is, first of all, thank you so much for checking us out this year. Thank you for listening.
Look at
Thank
you.
you for watching. We really appreciate it. This is our last show of the year. And it
As
is
a year, you get all emotional. I love it.
a little misty-eyed, you know.
Oh, man.
But it is, I'm very excited about the show. We have a great guest that we're going to bring in a moment. And later in the show, we are going to be revealing our best comic books of 2022. We're going to count down that list. It was actually a pretty easy, fair discussion this time, I think, which was nice.
Well, no.
I mean, there was some contention, but a little less yelling than usual. But regardless,
we'll
it was
fix
still
that.
hard. It was hard. There were a lot of good comics.
Oh, my God. So much great stuff.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, we are going to bring in our guest now. He is one of our absolute favorites here on the show. So why don't we bring him onto the main stage here? He is Kyle Starks, everybody. Hello.
Welcome.
Hey, look, it's me. Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, my gosh.
What a treat.
I should be wearing my hat right now. We'd be twins.
No, we'd be. I don't know how long that list is for the best comics of 2022, but I know number one has to be "I Hate This Place" from Skybound by Kyle
Can
Starks.
we, can we blow up a spot? Can I just jump ahead of things and blow up a spot a little bit, Pete? Is that all right?
Sure, yeah,
It's
please.
brewing. But I will say, I Hate This Place is on our list of best comics of the year. And in fact, not only that, I'll tell you because you're on right now, it is our audience favorite. It was one of our favorite. And also, we polled a bunch of people at our audience. People submitted lists and suggestions and things, and that was the top one. That was the one that got suggested the most. So there you go.
That's very nice to hear. We are getting a lot of love for Six Sidekicks of Trigger Heat and Chris and I this year. New York Public Library picked it as one of the 10 best books of 20. It actually came out last year. But the trade came out in January, right? So we're like a year
Still
behind
counts.
an actual yeah, we're getting but it's I guess it's the new paradigm. So it's crazy. We're getting all New York Public Library, Mary Sue, Polygon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar this year said it was one of the best books he's read all year.
Yeah, Kareem.
Yeah, we're like that's amazing. So I was like, oh, I guess maybe I'll hear nice things about I Hate This Place in 2023. That'll be really exciting for me. That everything's just a year later or 2 years later.
You know what we should do, now that I think about it, is we should do our best comics 5 years late, and then it'll be a nice surprise for everybody. Be like, oh, I read them 5 years ago.
I don't care when I'm on I'd like for it to be on the list before it came out. That would be best for sales. That'd be my optimal sales situation. That's really nice to we kind of live in a vacuum in terms of praise as creators. So it's nice to hear that people are reading the book and enjoying the book and hopefully buying it and not downloading it because I have kids.
Well, we love it. We reviewed every issue so far of I Hate This Place. I love that book. It's so much fun. We have you. I want to get back to it in a second. But we have you on to actually talk about a different book that's not out yet from Dark Horse Comics called Where Monsters Lie. Just to get a little of the business out of the way. The final order cutoff for it is January 9th. So if you like this book when you hear about it, and we're going to talk about it now, definitely tell your comic book store, let them know you want to order it. It comes out in stores on February 1st. But we read the first 2 issues of this one. I love this book as well. This is so much fun. I don't want to spoil too much. So
I don't know if fun's the right word. It's kind of scary, and you kind of wonder, how dark the writer is and what they've got going on in your life. But it's intense, and man, it grabs you, and you don't want to let go. It's a hell of a book, man.
No, we love to hear that. I think some of the, to be fair, some of the darker stuff I think might be Piotr the artist. He's really good at doing messed up things. But I definitely wrote it. I don't think he really he didn't add a scene, right? But he did make them worse. I think I think there's mostly a trailer, but someone's eye gets popped out with a knitting.
Oh my god! 2. And the adorable old lady did that. You know what I mean? Like it's out of left field. Like it's unbelievable.
Before we get too far, I just wanted to mention I wanted to talk about the concept of the book.
Well, Here's the thing. Here's the thing about this messed up scene is I definitely wrote that, but once I saw it, and I was like, that's great. I regretted writing it a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah, give me the elevator pitch on my book. That sounds fun.
Okay, cool. So essentially, this is a not retirement community, but it's a community of serial killers. Some of them amalgams or analogous to killers that you might know from the movies. There's a little bit of Jigsaw. Maybe there's a Michael Myers. There's a creepy clown like a
Pennywise. Of course, there's a clown.
There's
got to be a clown. That's the creepiest of them all.
Kills, they get taken back to this community. This is the place they hang out sort of between the movies. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, it's a gated community for slasher villains. It's where they go in between their killing sprees. It's a question I wondered. Where do they go? Who helps them build their murder traps? Like, are they? You can't get union workers for that. And I thought this was something that, I also like I've come to realize, like, I love horror. I've done comedy for most of my career, but I love horror for sort of the same reasons. They're very similar in just how the stories are told, but also like they emote feelings in a way that I find very exciting. But I became sort of aware, especially in promoting this book, that part of my love for slasher villains is because I was sort of raised in superheroes. Like, I always read superhero comics as a kid, and I love a guy in a costume who's got like his bit, and they're out there and it's good versus evil. So I think like, oh, what's your bit? It's like, oh, I have a sky and I kill co-eds. Like, I'm into that. You're Captain America, Same deal. So I'm like, the idea of teaming up is just, I think, just something that like I'm drawn to. I think a lot of people are drawn to is what happens if all these characters, these sort of recognizable tropes, get together. And these are all things like, what would happen? Like, do they have to mow their own lawn? Do they have lawns? Do they just they don't just put them in? What does Chucky do? Like, is he just sitting in an alley quietly for 2 years? No, he's getting cable somehow, right? He's got to feed his human girlfriend. I just what is the answer to all these questions? And so that was sort of the basis for the book, which is like, this is an interesting setting. Is where do these guys go? Sort of like, do they have managers, or who sort of handles the domesticated day? Where do they get their shirts? But it's like, that's just a setting, right? That's never that interesting to me. To just like what an interesting place. Like, that's not how I like to work. It's very much, what's the story? And the story is like, what if there's a survivor, and the survivor has been training and preparing and hunting and looking for these people, and suddenly has come across it. And so that's sort of the end of issue 1, is this survivor who's now a special agent monster hunter shows up to get his revenge.
Yeah, it is. I really loved kind of like where it ends in the first issue, and then where it picks up in the second. We kind of really get the full story, because sometimes, you get little bits and pieces. They lead with like crazy ideas and then explain as they go. It's nice to kind of understand everything that's going on and then be kind of like thrown into this insane world. We talked about the art. It's just. It's really creepy in all the right ways, but also just like setting up a normal family before you know what you're looking at. It was such an interesting idea, and kind of adds to that creepiness. And it's one of those things where the world is so crazy anyway, you wonder if there is stuff like this. It's just
Yeah, for sure. That's also, it's something that I'm really interested in. It's something I sort of explored, and I Hate This Place, which is that who are actually the bad guys. It seems like there's so many to sort of weigh these things. And for I Hate This Place, it's like, there's monsters and there's some sort of demonic entity and there's lights in the skies. But kind of the worst thing is just this guy who's looking for money. Mm-hmm. Just the human guy is the worst thing. And I'm really interested in that. And in this situation, here is literal monsters, but they're doing the things we do in many ways. Like, they still have the same impulses. They sort of want attention, and they want to make sure they keep their neighborhood clean, or what. But at the same time, like, let's not forget that they're monsters. And it seems like maybe the special agent is the bad guy, and say, well, maybe he is. And I think that's a really interesting thing to sort of explore in a horror comic, is like, where are the monsters, and are they that bad? But also, yes, they're definitely that bad. They're monsters.
But I also love the part where it's just like, one monster yells at the other monster like, "Hey, come on, you can't have your trash bins out like that. That's against the rules." Like, come on, like just hysterical, moment.
I think that's one of the things that's important. I think like the characters have to be likable, even if you want to spend time with them, or you want to hate them. It's one of the two. I think for almost any story, I don't think there's really an in between. I think you always want to spend time with these characters and like them, or dislike them immensely, or possibly dislike them in a way that you really enjoy sort of doing.
Well, I mean, on that note, I think something that really struck me about the book is not across the board, but a lot of these characters and their daily lives are kind of sad and pathetic a little bit. Is that just sort of setting up the comedy of contrasts, or is that how you feel? Oh, that's how Jason actually between he's just sort of lurking around and sighing and
he's really into flowers
and doing his gardening.
Yeah, I think I think that's what they would. I think that's what they'd all be like. Mm-hmm. I think they're all a little sad. They'd rather be killing. They don't want to be here like going to community meetings. They want to be doing the murders. That's all they care about. They're slasher villains. This is a massive inconvenience to them.
How did you decide on the rules? And what I mean by that is not, some of them have overlap. Like, I think there's a pretty easy fit between, say, a Jason type and a Michael Myers type. They're just killing people. But
sure.
When you're working supernatural into the mix, when you're working different types of genre killers into there, what in your mind, was there anything off limits? Was there anything that didn't quite jibe, etc.?
No, not that I can recall. I mean, in terms of how they would interact, I think, and it's in the book, there's sort of a community manager, mm-hmm. and then she has sort of her right-hand man who sort of clearly does sort of, the custodial work or whatever. He does whatever needs to be done. He's picking up the mail. But she says the rules pretty early, which are, you can't kill here. Yeah. You can never draw attention to this place, and you can't kill another member. And I think because in sort of the kayfabe of this world, right, is that they need this. They need these services to sort of do the only thing they want to do, which is, for most of them, murder. Doing big old killing murder sprees like baddies do. So I think like that sort of makes it in place. But, I do add a clear future conflict because there's two of the same type of monster, and that's against the rules for a specific reason. Gosh, I bet that doesn't come back later in an issue. Also, though, me setting up like who I would love to see X fight X, right? Mm-hmm. And I think like that sort of set up in the first one. I hope people like me are like, oh, I really want to see X fight X too. Mm-hmm. I think that would be awesome, and I'd like to know who wins that fight. So yeah, I think there was just like it's one of those, like, again, I want to be like they're theoretically, for the most of them. Some of them, I mean, one of them is very much sort of a Jason, Michael Myers, a shape, as they say. In the Carpenter script type. But those sort of mindless, unbeatable juggernauts. But I think everyone else is like, well, Jigsaw went home and probably had a favorite sitcom. He probably really liked Elmore Leonard novels or something. You know what I mean? Like, even though he's out there, here's the thing that I can't remember ever seeing some blueprints in the back of a Saw movie. Like, he's like, I got to figure out this face tearing apart machine. I gotta. Where are you getting the engine, like the motors for that? Mm-hmm. There's one where he has a ditch filled with syringes, and I'm like, where'd he get the syringes? How'd he dig did he dig that ditch himself? He looks old. I don't think he could dig that ditch. So I think the thing is how do they get along? I think they have to get along. And I think the thing is this place, Wilmhurst Gated Community, I think it's a place that's respected by all of them because this helps them do what they have to do, and what they must do. So
they can do what they want. Yeah.
Did you have, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but did you have a formative horror movie? Something that you remember oh, that's the first one where you sparked into, I like this genre?
I came into horror pretty late in terms of being a fan, to really, really being a fan. In fact, the guy who writes the backups, the essays for I Hate This Place, Benito Serrano, started doing these yearly sort of these are the streaming movies you should check out lists. And so if he put hard recommend, I watched it, and I was like, oh, I really like these. And that was not too long ago. I remember watching I thought they were silly. I mean, I was a little bit pretentious, if I want to be honest. I kind of thought a lot of horror movies were silly. But as I've grown older, I'm attracted for the same reason I'm attracted to anything else. It's I love wrestling. I love what is it? It's this has to be solved with violence. No matter what it is, no matter what the story is, no matter what the problem is, no matter what the solution is, it must be solved with violence. And that as a 80s action movie is my favorite, you know? Like these are things, for whatever reason, things that are put into a box so tight. And like wrestling, you know, it always has to happen in the ring, right? And horror is sort of, it always has to be a monster. Not always, but you get what I'm saying. I'm generalizing that. I really like those because it makes it so it's sort of, there's a low base level that's always enjoyable. It's always enjoyable. You can watch a terrible B movie and be like, well, that bit with the paper mache head exploding was pretty good. Like, even though it was clearly a paper mache, or they were trying so hard. Like, horror movies are always good. And I think that's what I appreciate them as a big boy, as a grown up. I know when I was little, and I think it was a joke, but I think it was a joke that was not a joke. Like, we watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space every birthday slumber party. And, you know, we were just at Spirit Halloween this year, and they have, like, Killer Clowns costumes. I'm like, how is that possible? But as terms I mean, I have a Shudder, like, I'm watching everything now, right? Like, now I watch everything, but it took a long time. So I don't know if I remember I mean, I can tell you, I can actually answer this question. I just realized, like, the scariest movie to me is still probably, I remember we went to, my parents took me to go visit, they went to their friend's house. And I think it was just dropping into, I don't know. But the dude had The Fly. He had The Fly on TV. Wow. And I was little, man. And I was, like, watching it from, like, sort of the doorway of the next room. And, like, that movie, no. Kyle can't do body horror. Like, that's a fact. And The Fly is a brilliant movie. It's so good. Man. I cannot watch that movie. It creeps me out so bad. I can't hang with body horror on any... in fact, Benito, whenever a movie comes out, I'm like, hey, that looks pretty good. He's like, body horror, my dude. You can't do it. Like, oh.
I think I know the answer to this one, and this is more broadly about your work. But since you do come up with these comedic premises and obviously explore them comedically as well, where do you feel like you're starting with when you're framing something out? Do you start with, like, here's the concept, then here's the jokes I could do, and then you find the emotional bent later? Or specifically, like, where does that emotional hook come in your process?
Yeah, this is tough for me to answer because I don't know. Don't talk about The Fly. Don't talk about The Fly. It creeps me out. He's got the hairs.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the brindle fly. Anyway, so, I mean, for this like note, for sure, I was watching, I think I was watching Fear Street 2, and there's a bit where sort of three slashers sort of descend in a field at one point from different directions, and I thought, that's great. I want to figure that out. Like, I want to play with this team up idea. I love the idea that all monsters in the movies that you see are the same world somehow. Like, that's a terrible, even worse than our world. That's a bad place, you know? So it's always that first. It's always, and this is one of the few ones, like, I hate this place, and Where Monsters Lie, we're definitely like, what's the place first? Like, what is the idea? Because to me, story is always first. But it is like, oh, I'm going to do an 80s action movie at Sex Castle. Oh, I want to do, I want to do Korean action movies. It's Assassination. It's always sort of a genre I want to play in first. But, like, I don't ever do jokes. It's always story. I'm always thinking, like, what are the beats of the story? What do I want to happen? How do I want people to react to those? And then the jokes, I just let it happen. And, you know, for I Hate This Place, like, I thought I was writing just charming characters, and other people were like, oh, it's hilarious. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't intend for it to be hilarious at all. Like, I know, like, Dante Howitzer is, like, a very amusing character, but it's like, I think it's just, and it's funny because when I did that book, like, I was like, I'm not going to do comedy. I'm maybe done with comedy forever because my readership wasn't increasing because comedy is a dirty word in direct market comics. It simply is. People have been burned too many times by things that aren't funny. I'd say there's only a few of us that can consistently do it in a way that should appeal to a large group of people, which is like Chip, Mark Russell, Ryan Brown, and me. And there are 100% other people who've made good comedy books, but I think, like, there's so many bad ones. Like, Marvel be like, check out our funny new book, and you're like, it's just weird gags. Like, it's just weird. It's like gags. It's like, what is this? And then so people don't want comedy. They don't seek it out. And it's like, I understand that. So I was like, I'm done with comedy. I'm going to write this horror book. Kirkman even says, like, don't write it funny, which I didn't think I did. But I wanted it to be charming so badly. I think it just seeps in. And I mean, that's my voice. So I wasn't going to do comedy anymore. But then I was like, you know what? This was during the pandemic. And I was like, if my legacy, I had a book, Old Head, which is a horror comedy. It's an outright horror comedy. I highly recommend it. Chris Schweitzer says it's my best book. He's probably right. It's up there. It's number 3, I think, maybe 4. And they were like, how many copies do you want? The Image asked me, like, how many copies do you want to print? And I was like, that doesn't seem like a Kyle decision. That seems like an Image decision. And they're like, well, based on everything we printed for you, we're going to do 4,000 copies. And I thought, this was before I Hate This Place. And I thought, that's my legacy, is maybe 4,000 people, maybe at best 4,000 people read my book and say it's upsetting. So I'm like, I'm not going to do comedy. I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to try something else. I want to write everything. I want to write romance. 6 Sidekicks is a mystery. I did another Assassination's kind of a mystery, right? Like, I want to do all these genres. I want to play at everything. And, but then I did it and I was like, I really I want people to have fun when they read my books. Like, I want, and that doesn't mean they need to be funny. For this particular book, I was like, don't say it's funny. It is funny, but by issue 4, it's not. I assure you it's not. Issue 4 is not funny. Issue 3 it gets considered less funny. And that's how I do everything. It's like, I want to bring people in with these sort of charming, likable characters. And so they're funny. That's the easiest way to make someone go, oh, I like spending time with these guys. They're kind of funny. They kill co-eds and teenagers. So it's like, where I start is always, what's the story I want to tell? I wanted to do a team up. I wanted to do this group of slasher villains. And it's like, well, what's the logistics of that? And then what is the story I want to tell? And the story I wanted to tell is twofold. It's one, it's about this weird family that are monsters, but they're not. They're still monsters, right? And I think that's the thing, is like, they're bad, and it seems like they should all be together, but they're not. They're monsters. But also, this person who was traumatized, who lives in this world of slasher villains, which is Special Agent Connor Hayes, I hope his name is. Which and like, here's the thing with this character. It's like, this character to me it's Batman if a slasher villain had killed Martha and Wayne, or Martha and
Thomas.
Tom, whatever his name is.
Tommy.
Batman Senior. And where he's trained his whole life to eventually he's trained his body, he's trained his mind. He's put himself in a position of authority where he can sort of do as he pleases. And then when he finally finds these people, it's like, well, then he's going to have a whole new challenge. Because if you wanted to stop monsters from killing people, like, how far are you willing to go? Like, at what point are you not crossing a line yourself? And will you even recognize that? And like, these things are really interesting. Like, that's the story that's interesting to me. And that's a horror movie. I mean, after this first issue, it's like 3 issues of murder, violence, and mayhem that I hope are just a good fun time, because that's, like I said, what I truly endeavor to do. Did I answer that? I feel like I answered it great.
No, I think you did. I mean, not to you really did, and not to spend too much time on this, but I think part of the problem is that people don't differentiate their comedy. Like you were mentioning about Marvel books with gags. People don't see the difference between gags and character-based comedy, and I do think
100.
that's what I Hate This Place in particular. One of the things that I really like about it is you started in this very serious place, but you do draw us in with this couple who's living in this house. There's all this insane, like literally everything is going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes funny because they're, per the original title, they're like, fuck this place.
Yes.
We hate this place. This is terrible.
It is awful.
Because it is awful. And that's where it comes out of, because you already care about these people and their relationships. You want them to survive. That's where the comedy comes from. That's different than joke, but it still can be funny in a different way.
Yeah, it's humorous. I think it's all humorous, but I think all good things have everything in them. And I'm really like, I asked Stark, like, don't call it a comedy because people won't buy it. Because it's not a comedy to me. Like, it's a drama, it's a horror movie, it's a thriller, and yeah, it's humorous too, because I can't help myself. It's just going to be a little bit funny. That's just how it's going to be. Like, one day I'm going to write something. I'm pitching something right now, which I'm like, it's not going to be funny at all. It's very serious. It's very dark. And like, every time I say that, I'm like, yeah, but that one character, there might be one character that's kind of funny. And I'm like, Kyle, don't like, be cool. And like, that's like, for I Hate This Place, like, as I'm used, like, I don't really, like I said, I don't write my bits. I let them sort of happen. I let the characters decide the bits. And I try to, if I'm doing comedy, I was like, in this moment, like, now it's time for me to do a joke. And I just like, make yourself laugh. And for I Hate This Place, there's so many times I'm like, and now there's a ghost dick joke. And I'm like, nope, wrong book. This is a different book, and that's not going to be in here, Kyle. Now you got to put a scary ghost thing in. And I'm like, oh, scary ghost thing. But yeah, it's like
scary
a party.
Ghost
so
dick.
Like,
got it.
What if something funny happened right here? Wouldn't that be better? And it's like, the answer is probably yes most of the time. And now I'm just leaning into it. But it's like, I don't want to be, I'd be like, oh, I just think it's a bad word in comics to be like, he's a comedy writer. And it's like, I am a comedy writer. I 100% am. But I'm also like, I think I write top 10 action scenes in comics. Like, I'd go to bat to that, because I think my choreography that I write is great. And like, but it's
Six Sidekicks. The action scenes were awesome. Like every single.
I think Assassination. I think Eric Henderson like brings it to life. I think if you Rock Candy Mountain, Old Head. I think my action scenes are top notch, and I drew those, which people have to suffer through that, I guess. But yeah. So it's like the thing is, like, I'm trying to. It's so easy to get labeled, and it's like I don't mind being labeled. If my legacy is, wow, he made 4,000 people laugh twice a year, like that's pretty good. I can live with that. But I'd like for it to be 50,000 people read that, and they maybe they didn't like it. I don't know, 50,000 might be too much. Well, I want more readers. I want readers.
Let me help you out a little bit, maybe with Where Monsters Lie. Horror movies work when they make people laugh. Like people laugh at the theater, they laugh out loud.
100%.
Things are goofy, there are jokes. So really it's just a horror comic, just the same way a horror movie is a horror movie, and there is some comedy in there.
100%. I don't want to stand this sort of a little bit of everything, but I was thinking, like, if someone's like, hey, what's the funniest bit in a movie? It's like, oh, comedy. I'm like, man, I bet the things that made me laugh the hardest are like Arnold Schwarzenegger pun bits in like Commando. And it's like that. No one says that movie, but he does it in so many movies, and every time it happens, like, there's a thing in sort of late '80s. Die Hard has several where it's like, that's pretty funny. The guy grabbing the candy bar in Die Hard, like, come on, dude, that's hilarious. Like, it's so funny.
I'll contend that the best line in any movie that has ever been made is in Eraser, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's having the fight scene in the zoo, and he shoots an alligator and looks at the alligator and says, "Your luggage."
Yep.
Great line.
Brilliant. He's like, I get to do these lines, right? And they're like, well, the script writer seems pretty good. He's like, no, I get to do whatever I want. So I think also, yes, it's very, and that's, so like I said, horror is a natural transition just because it's the same setup, it's the same bits, and I love horror, I love comedy. I mean, I love everything. I'm a consumer of media for sure. So I think the best things have a little bit of everything. They have a little bit of everything. You want a little romance, you get a little romance in there. Get some kissing. Everything's better with a little kissing.
There you go. And I'll also shout out, just to keep plussing you up on stuff, but like Rock Candy Mountain was so heartbreaking and so sad at the same time that it was funny. Like, it was a really beautiful, wonderful book. So
Thanks,
there's a lot of stuff going on. So good.
Yeah. I think it's another book that book starts very funny. By the end, it's not. Like, that's just. No. I think that's progression. I think the progression of things that have a lot of different elements in them is there's what hooks you, and it's the journey it takes you on. And I think that's maybe over prevalent in my books, but I can see it. It's like, oh, there's where it starts. Here's where it's like, hey, don't you like these guys? I'm doing something awful to them. Let's see where it goes. And where they go is the real story, right? So inevitably jokes fall out, but I also think there's always a place for a ghost stick joke, really, if you think about it.
So Where Monsters Lie, how long is the series? I know it's a limited series. 4 issues.
Oh, wow.
And do you have anything else lined up after that you can talk about? Anything else
I don't have anything else I can talk about because it hasn't been announced yet. I'm going to have, I can bring the lights down. Give me this. I will have the biggest book of my career announced, I think, January, because it comes out in April. So I don't know when they start announcing the biggest book of my career is going to be announced. I'm very excited about it. I can't talk about it because they haven't announced it yet. In fact, nothing I have, I have another book that I think is supposed to come out this year. That's YA. I don't think I can talk about it. I think they told me not to talk about it. So right now I'm at a weird place because I'm wrapping up I Hate This Place, and I'm doing the last scripts for I Hate This Place. I'm doing the last issue of this miniseries that's going to be announced, which is going to be a big. I think it's going to be a big deal. I think it should be a big deal. It's a recognized property from the big two that I think when it's announced, if you're familiar with my work, you'll be like, oh, it's a natural fit. And I've had nothing but a great time with it. I have a bunch of pitches out, but those are pitches. They've been approved, but it's nothing. Like, I don't have artists connected to that stuff yet. So I'm at a really weird place, like right now, where I just did Creepshow. I did half an issue of Creepshow with Fran Galland, whose art is unbelievably good in that. And he's like, oh, we should put together this thing. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what are you into? And so like, we're like, oh, we'll do this. But he's like, well, I'm working on a book until at least February. So it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do until February. Like, so I'm at an interesting place where I'm going to have to sort of do some figuring and some pivoting. And if I didn't have savings, like, it'd be awful, and I'd be sick to my stomach and so nauseous. But like it's kind of exciting because I probably get 60 maybe more days to do whatever I want, or I start working on one of these approved pitches. Like who knows? But yeah, I got stuff. I always got stuff coming out. I'm always got stuff coming out, and I'd love to do it. I hope this sells well enough that we can do a sequel. Just because it's a horror movie, why would you not do at least one bad sequel?
There you go.
And I'd love to work with Piotr again. He was a huge professional. He really elevated things, which is what you want. I felt, dude, he does things. Like I said, I wrote this eye being popped out, but he did little things, and you'd be like, man, that's good. There's a bit where
it was such a crazy angle to have that happen too. Like it was
the whole thing. I think someone's neck gets broken, but he really goes for it in any of the violent sequences. And I had a bit where someone gets hit with a claw hammer, and sort of like they're hitting like this way, and as they hit, like they have 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth coming out, like the row of teeth, and like I never would have written like he's like there should be a row of teeth showing the action, and it's so gross. Like it's so grody, it's awesome. Wow. So I'd love to work with Peter again. I think this was very much his calling because he does horror stuff so well. His Witcher comic is beautiful. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's just beautiful. Or he did a Bloodborne too. He did like a Bloodborne with all sorts of monsters in it. He's great. He was amazing. The art looks great. He brought all his characters to life. I'm really pleased. I just got issue 3 because he's drawing 4 now, and I read issue 3 and I was like, oh, it's really good. Like thank God. Because I thought it was good when I wrote it, but then you get it and you're like, oh, it was really good.
Yeah.
Because you're so far away, you get so distant from when you write when you actually start seeing pages. So I'm really excited about it. I think
that's got to be such a cool feeling where you write something, it kind of goes out of your head, and then when you get to see it kind of come to life, that's got to be amazing.
Yeah, most of the time. Sometimes it's frustrating, and also sometimes you have to go, I don't remember this. Like I have to go look to make sure. It's a weird thing that the collaboration process for comics is so weird. Just because it's like, oh, let me go find this script I wrote in February to make sure everything's supposed to be on this page. But that's it's never a problem I've actually ever had. But you have to do it. You have to go look.
Mm-hmm.
That's comics collaboration.
Awesome.
And then you go, that's really funny. I'm glad I wrote that. Whoa, way to go, Pascal. You wrote some good stuff. I'm very proud of you, Pascal. And that's like for me. My when people are like, oh, like what are your, this is such a weird segue, but what is your advice for like people who want to, start making things? And my thing is always, make the thing that you want to exist, right? Like tell the story that you want to hear, And so the nice thing about these collaborations is like, oh, I don't remember these 4 panels. And I go back and I'm like, oh, that's good. I like that. I'm so pleased that I did that because I really like it. Which is true for, again, most everything I've done is I just reread. I don't remember things. I just did this New York Public Library thing with Chris Schweitzer because they picked Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton to be one of their top 10 books of the year for adults. Very cool. And I was like, they're going to ask me about characters, and I don't remember any of their names. I mostly remember what they did. And I told him, and he's like, you don't remember their names? And I'm like, no. Like I wrote that. I live in the book when I'm doing it. I live in it so hard that it's my everything. It's like, this book is my everything. And then when it's done, I'm done. Like I'm moving on to the next thing, and that's my everything. And he's like, oh, I remember how many pages. And I'm like,
wow.
Who I don't care. Like I love them. And the thing is, like, so I'm rereading Six Sidekicks, and I'm texting him like, oh, this is really good. Like this bit's really good. We did really good. And he's like, yeah, I thought we did pretty. I'm like, no, this is great. We did so good. We made such a good book. That's a great feeling. That's the best feeling, I think, is like going back and going, this is still really good. They're all still really good. I'm really proud of what I've been able to put out. I've been lucky to only have to do what I wanted to do for the most part. So,
yeah, it's lucky.
Well, awesome. Kyle, this book is so good. I can't wait to read the rest of it. Love the first 2 issues. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm very excited for whatever's going to happen on I Hate This Place as well. I love that book too.
Yeah, really looking forward to the big announcement.
And that
hopefully coming soon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think,
Kyle.
I don't know.
Thank
I'm
you
done already?
What? Yeah, we're done already. Thank you for coming. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry to
I
spoil.
can do it all day. No, it's all right.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for the time.
Much. Thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure. Happy New Year in advance.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you guys, too. Where Monsters Lie, out from Dark Horse Comics. Order it now. You got to do the pre-orders, guys. You got to do the pre-orders.
Wait, actually, before we let you go, do you want to explain? I assume most people know this, but why are pre-orders important?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why, says Kyle Starks. Here's the thing about comics, is you go, oh, I've heard about this great new comic. It's the new Who's your favorite writer? Who's your favorite writer?
Kyle Starks.
All right, the new Kyle Starks book. That's very nice. And you're like, oh, the new Brian K. Vaughan book's coming out, right? You're like, oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I can't wait for it to come out. I'm going to go get it. They'll have number one. They'll no doubt have number one because they're going to order a ton. It's Brian K. Vaughan. But your store has no idea how many to order number two. They have no idea. And by the time number ones come out, they already had to order number two. They had to order number three. So the thing is, like, one, if you want to actually get all issues of a book, you have to pre-order it. You have to go to your store and tell them you want it, because what will happen is, yes, they will probably have number one, but they won't have two, they won't have three, and they'll definitely not have four unless you reserve it in some way for yourself. That's number one. Number two, if you're me, if you're on my end, Dark Horse, I'm like, hey, let's talk about the next thing. And they say, oh, we're still waiting on numbers for Where Monsters Lie. So for me, I need it desperately. Is it great if it sells out and goes to a second printing? Sure. Is it better if retailers order 3,000 more copies? By the way, 3,000 copies. Come on. Is it better if they order 3,000 more copies? Of course. Like, that's the thing. So not only is it great for me as a creator, but who cares? Like, that doesn't matter really. But if you want it, that's always my thing, is like, because I'll go, there's this one store in town that like orders my books, and they'll order like too many copies of number one. They still have like who knows how many copies, but they never have the newest book because the people who want it are buying it. So if someone walks in and wants issue 5 of like I Hate This Place, they're probably not going to be able to get it because they didn't put it in the reserve. They didn't pre-order it. Like they probably order like 2 copies more. So that's really the thing. One, it's like it assures you that you get it. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I just want to try it. Hey, cancel it after number one. It still looks great for me. I don't know how that affects retailers. I'm sorry, retailers. I don't know if that's bad. If you're like, I don't need to carry this anymore. I got number one. But those pre-order numbers are crucial, especially like Brian K. Vaughan's not sweating it. Who else is really good? Chip Zdarsky's not sweating it at this point. Tom King's not sweating it at this point. Matt Kent's not sweating it at this point. But your Kyle Stark's, we're sweating it very badly. But also, it's like I want people to get the book. And I'm a trade waiter. Like I 100% get it. There are dope variant covers, which is sort of the what's the word I'm with? Like that's the incentive.
Yes,
for I Hate This Place. We do the back matter. I do an original strip every month. We try to do back matter. I don't think we're doing back matter for this, but I haven't heard for sure. And I'm always here for it because that's my thing. Is like, why get the single issues? What's the added value? And it's like, well, dope covers. That's sure. I think the first one's James Stocco, and the second one's Fabio Moon, and then Tyler Crook, and then Dave Rubin. Good horror guys, really great horror guys. So yeah, the pre-ordering is real important. And I think like if you go to a store, and I put this online, I was like, hey guys, make sure you pre-order. It's great. It's really important. And they're like, oh, give me a link. And I'm like, I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's an online service. I don't know if there's a mail order service. That's also like, don't pay shipping if you don't have to. Just go to the store and get it. Of course, for some people, that's not an option. And I understand it. But yeah, pre-ordering is important. It's more important than it seems like it should be for an industry because you think you should just be able to go and buy something, and you should. Mm-hmm. But the way that comics work is literally your store is ordering issue 3. Maybe it has already ordered issue 3 by the time number 1 shows up on the shelves. It's a crazy thing where it puts stores also via your pull list. Like that's a part of it too. The stores need it. It's all data for the stores and for creators and publishers, and it assures you get the thing you want. I hope I did a great job with that. I felt like it was very compelling, very informative. All right.
Yeah, you did an awesome job, and I'm going to go to my comic book store tomorrow, and I'm going to reserve the first 3 issues of Where Monsters
I'm going to get all 4. I'm going to reserve all 4.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3 and kind of see what happens.
Issue 4 is the David Rubin cover, and it's the best one. Sorry, everyone else. It's really good. It's Professor Puzzleman. It's very good.
Oh.
But listen, I'm a trade waiter. I get it, but if you're not a trade waiter, if you like that monthly fix, which I loved when I was fully comic fan. I like that. I liked how this week was this comic and next week was that. I love that. You got to put the pre-orders in. You can't just, those guys probably know. It's the new people. If you want all 4 issues of my delicious, fun, exciting new Dark Horse comic about monsters and revenge, you got to put that pre-order in.
There you go.
And I'd love you for it. Thank you so much. I'm also sorry the top 10 list of the year is all going to be my books. So I apologize in advance for that. All my books, Tom King's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Also came out last year. Yeah, it's got to be on there. Nice House on the Lake. Did that come out this year? That's part
yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
I'll tell you, we're going to get to our list in a little bit. We also have a trade list that we're going to do in our Stack podcast that comes out Wednesdays. And wait, I'm going to double check before I'm going to promise this, but I believe Six Sidekicks is.
It's on there.
Yeah, it's on there.
It's not on there now. It's definitely going to be.
I'm going to say this. If Kyle, please leave this. Kyle, we have to talk about other things. Kyle, you're holding us captive now. Listen, if you get Where Monsters Lie and you like it, I already have a book out. It's called Old Head. It involves Dracula's head. It involves legacy, and it's violent and it's funny. And I think they're very similar creatures. No one talked about Old Head this year. Old Head and Six Sidekicks both should have been nominated for Eisners for Best Humor Publication. I say that objectively. Objectively, they should have. And I'll tell you, I'm gonna talk. Can I talk shit?
Yeah, talk shit.
Please,
Let's
please.
do this.
I like how you're looking around.
I know. I want to make sure none of these other creators are in the room. Because this is awful. This is a terrible thing that I'm going to say. But Six Sidekicks and Trigger Key not nominated for an Eisner. The books that were nominated are not making any best of year list. And I'm just saying, what's the real lesson here? Six Sidekicks and Trigger Key is so good. Old Head should have been on those lists too. So Where Monsters Lie, you're going to love it. It's so much fun. I'm here for you guys to have fun. That's all I want. And you can close the window now. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for having me. It's been so great. Bring me back someday. Let's do it again.
Yay! Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks so much. Right. That was fun.
Oh my gosh. There you go. That was the nicest mean thing I think anybody's ever said.
Yeah.
My book is good. There you go. But yes, like you said, Where Monsters Lie out from Dark Horse Comics. The final order cutoff is January 9th, so get in your orders before then. And it hits stores on February 1st. And like we said, we read the first 2 issues. They're awesome. You're totally right. Super gross, fantastic action. They're great. And I'll tell you what. We should probably go to the next part, but before we do that, we're going to invite our third here on stage.
Oh, is he? Did he show up?
He did show up. He showed up. I noticed it a little earlier, but it was towards the end of the interview. So
no, okay.
I kept him out just so he could really think about it when he's done.
Was it toward the end of the interview? Because I thought you had a replacement for me because I saw all of that interview. And I could tell Alex has his champagne. He doesn't want to let me in to talk, even though
I'm drinking a cocktail that was designed by our CBC chef.
I don't care. Shut up. Hey, shut up. Sit and listen to you guys talk. I hate this place. I did put Six Sidekicks on my best of list, and here I am in the wing like a sucker.
Well, that's what happens when you're late. You know what I mean?
Oh, sorry. I was in the car for 9 hours driving through a snowstorm. So things happen. The world affects us, Pete. And you can't tell what it is. Look at you in a safe little home. And look at you, Alex, in the same spot. I was in the wilds of upstate New York.
We're next to each other. We're recording next to each other.
Believe me, I could tell.
2.5 feet of snow.
I could tell. Listen to the interview. You guys are right next to each other. And old Justin's out on the float, pushed out to sea.
Oh, man, you see what Kyle says he wants to talk to you.
Can I just say, Justin, this is the worst conversation of 2022. So I'd love to turn it over to the best comic books of 2022.
Oh, wow.
This guy can't even stop transitioning to speak to my complaints.
Oh, boy. There we go. Guys.
Wow, there's slides this year?
There were also slides last year.
Oh,
This is why I was late. I was working on these slides.
Yes. You were picking them up 9 hours away. We had them delivered 9 hours away.
We shouldn't have sent them out. We should have done it at home.
So these are our best comic books of 2022. I will, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm going to say this again. This was real hard. My whittled down list was probably 50 to 75 comics. I know you guys had big lists as well. We got on a Zoom.
It's okay. You can say your list was bigger than ours. It's all right. You know what I mean?
It was too many.
Alex wrote down every comic we talked about in 2022.
Pretty much. You guys did a better job of narrowing it down than I did. This was not a humble brag. This was a slam.
I couldn't sleep last night because of the decisions we've made on this list.
It was very, very hard, but I do think we've got some books that we talked about this year that we think are representative of the year. Obviously, things are going to get left out. That's just the nature of lists, but why don't we get into it? And we'll each talk about some of our favorite books as we go around, and we'll chime in on them as well. But here we go. We had a supersized list this year, so we're going to start off with number 15. That Texas Blood from Image Comics, written by Chris Condon, art by Sean Phillips. Justin, you want to talk about this one?
I love this book. I've talked about it on the show a ton. What's great about it is it's able to shift to a couple different styles. The most recent arc, which you're seeing a cover from here, is a terrifying sort of winter horror story with
which you're living through right now.
Exactly. I feel that's why I love this book even more. I put it to the top of the list. It's that it started out as more of a small Texas town crime story, and the middle arc was about a cult and sort of some occult cult situations they were dealing with. But the fact that this book is able to do all of that while maintaining the fantastic art style, I love this book. It's a great, if you're a fan of criminal and that world and haven't tried this, you really, really need to.
Just to give, in case people are watching this instead of just listening, there isn't much chess actually in the comic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not like Queen's Gambit in a comic book form. The one thing that I will throw in there, just to add on to what Justin's saying, that I've been really impressed, is this book started in one place and it has gone so far afield from what we thought it was. It played around in different genres, which has been very, very cool to see.
But maintaining
over the
tone.
past year. Yeah, absolutely. Next up, at number 14, Ice Cream Man from Image Comics, written by W. Maxwell Prince, art by Martin Morazzo. This is kind of a no-brainer. We talk about every issue of this. We love every issue of this. We just had them on the show talking about their other series, Art Brut, as well as this.
Did we talk to him about Ice Cream Man, though?
We did talk to them about Ice Cream Man. Good. Every single issue of this is pretty much perfect, I would say. It embraces different tones and emotions, particularly over the past year. It's gotten much more personal and deep and dark in an emotional way versus dark in just a straight horror way, which has really been fascinating and impressive to see.
And like the characters, it's been warming, characters in the book, it's been warming its way into our brains. So now that we have started to see Ice Cream Men in our daily lives, I just fought one off.
Yeah, and I have a hard time when they drive by not fighting them. To Stray Bully's point, though, number one last year, we felt like we talked about it so much. You know, a lot of the times we feel like we want to put books on people's radar, and if we talk them to death, we kind of feel like people get it, and we can talk about other books a little bit.
Well, I think there's that. There's other books that, like, Ice Cream Man is just always going to be our book. We're always going to be in on that. We're always sold on that. There are other books on this list, though, that I think it was more their year, and that's why they ended up a little harder.
But this book is just such a creative juggernaut. I really was, every issue, so impressed. You don't know what you're going to get. You know it's going to be scary. You know it's going to be a little bit creepy. But so impressive, the creativity, the different kinds of ideas that they would do and pull off every issue. Just so impressive as a writing feat as well as a artistic feat every single time.
Well, why don't we move to number 13, Catwoman, Lonely City from DC Comics by Cliff Chiang. Pete, take it away.
All right, first of all, this is the year of the artist. You know what I mean? Like Cliff Chiang is just one of those people who was just known for a writer, but now is doing it all, and man, just killing it. Should be in charge of everything because the art is
in charge of everything.
That's right. Wow, the artist should be in charge of everything. I just.
By the way, real quick, I don't want to interrupt too much, but Justin, how did Cliff do with the snow plowing on the roads when you were coming down?
He was good, but he doesn't know how to drive. He doesn't know how to drive, so it was a little bit haphazard.
Oh, come on! Don't say that about Cliff. He's a great driver. Don't say that.
He was. You know what he was doing? He was drawing when he should have been focusing on the wheel.
Well, you know, sometimes you got to bring your art to work. But
now, Pete, when you say that this is the year of the artist, would you say that your lifetime war against words is finally being won?
It's finally a little bit at a time. We're winning. But yeah, worth it for the art alone. Are you kidding me? This is just such a unbelievable accomplishment. Such a cool vibe you brought to Catwoman. Such an artistic masterpiece. Just so artistically led and beautiful world to jump in and explore. Catwoman, not one of my favorite characters, but with this, really brought Catwoman above and beyond for me. I was just so impressed. Every single issue of this was a banger. I was just so impressed with what he achieved in this comic.
Nice. Great book.
Very good. Next up, huge surprise here. Didn't talk about it earlier in the podcast. I Hate This Place, Coming in at number 12 from Image Comics, written by Kyle Starks, art by Artyom Topolin. This is our audience favorite as well, as mentioned towards the beginning. We asked folks.
Oh, the little
Twitter.
badge, audience favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I love this badge. I imagine we'll be seeing a lot of them as we go forward.
Oh, this should be a sticker or something. I'd love to wear that.
We'll see what happens, I guess. Yeah. But regardless, we asked folks both on our Patreon Slack and other places about some of their favorite books. This one came out on tops, and it was on our list as well. We also love this book. This follows two women who inherit an old house that is beset by literally everything. Like everything. Ghosts, monsters, aliens, strange things that are indescribable.
It's a scary time to buy a home.
It's a scary time to buy a home. But like we were talking about earlier in the podcast, this is funny from a relationship perspective, but it also brings in great horror elements, and it is relentlessly creative throughout.
The way they struggle through their mortgage rate breakdown is unbelievable, and that's why it's so hard to buy a place. And speaking of this, the title, I Hate This Place, having just spent 9 hours in a car, I definitely get that.
And also what's fun is after the interview, you can reread it and then think about all the places Kyle wanted to put more ghost sticks, and he would, maybe the artist was like, I think there's too many.
Talk about a sticker. Well, that's something if we had our own ghost sticks, we could drop them anywhere, in any book.
Let's pause the show for a little bit. I'll put some ghost stick stickers on a bunch of other things.
Oh, my God.
All right, let's move on.
The beauty of ghost sticks is you can imagine them in your mind at any time, like the many that are hanging off your faces right now.
Oh, come on, man.
That's what I'm doing, Pete. You can't stop me.
Number 11, I can stop you. Number 11, Superman, Son of Kal-El from DC Comics, written by Tom Taylor, art by John Tibbs, Cian Tormey et al. Justin, take it away.
I mean, this is the year. Tom Taylor has had such
this is
a
the year of the writer, is what you're going to say.
No, yes, don't you dare. It's the year of the artist.
It's the year of the writer. Finally, artists, we can put them to bed because it's time for words to ring the bell. Tom Taylor has had such an ascendance, I feel like, when it comes to just character-driven superhero storytelling. Between this and a book we're going to talk about a little bit higher up on the list, I feel like taking these characters into a new place where we are both inside their heads, following them as their relationships change, as they go through the highs and lows of what it is to be a superhero and have a real life, while at the same time building out a new pantheon of villains for Superman here, and also the long form storytelling of this Lex Luthor-driven thing and all the sort of intricacies of the conspiracy behind that. It's just been a great book and excellent art as well by the team here.
Yeah, I just was so impressed with what they're doing with Superman here in this book. It is such a fresh, cool take. Really love the choices being made. Just such a great thing to have in your stack. I was just... look forward to every issue, and it delivered on every issue. They were just doing such great work on this comic.
And I just also want to give a shout out to the inclusion here in terms of Superman and his boyfriend. It's been a wonderful relationship to see. And the biggest thing I would say about that is how Tom Taylor expertly wove that relationship into the emotional thread of the book and the progression of John Kent as a character. It wasn't something that was just done for a stunt, as it might have done back in the 90s or something like that. Instead, it was really part of his emotional growth and his emotional growth as a hero. There's an issue when Kal-El returns that is just absolutely beautiful to see, dealing with that, one of the best issues of the year.
Shout out to the comments. Real quick, shout out to the comments. Ben the Border Collie. Fact check, Tom Taylor's been knocking out of the park for years. Remember his Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man book? Yes, we've been on Tom Taylor for a long time, but I feel like the mainstream has finally, like these two books that we've been talking about, and all of the other work that he's making, have really gotten the spotlight this year. I think bigger than before.
Yeah, we used to see Tom Taylor at like small clubs in the middle of the night. There was nobody there. Now he's huge, releasing millions.
Stadiums, selling out stadiums.
We were fans first.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you love Tom Taylor so much, name 3 of his books. You know what I'm talking about?
Wow.
Number 10, Deadly Class, Image Comics, written by Rick Remender, art by Wes Craig. Pete, this one over to you.
Oh, man, this ended so well. It's just one of those things where the ending is so important. I feel like Rick Remender can mess with your emotions, but this was just such a lovely ending and love letter to such an accomplishment. Just it's started off so crazy and then ended up in such an amazing place. The art was super bananas tight. It was just such an achievement from start to finish. This is something that, I don't want him to die, but when he does die, this is something that's going to be talked about for years and years to come. Such a beautiful, beautiful book. So it was just great. Just fucking great.
Alex, it's so funny. We're talking about the end of an epic storyline here.
No, I'm just...
aren't you mourning the loss of this? You're just over there giggling.
I was laughing at the idea of like Pete got in that fight with Rick Remender back in the day. I'm just picturing him going up to Rick and being like, "Hey, when you die, we're going to talk about this book." That's it. That's all. But I totally agree. Otherwise, this ended in such a purposefully surprising and personal way, something I absolutely would not have expected from the beginning of the book. I was really blown away by the last couple of issues in particular.
What I love about Rick Remender is ever since we first saw his work, I think, on Fear Agent back in the day, and first started interviewing him at different cons and whatnot, he's always been this super emotional writer. And I think that's something in comic books that is really rare, where it's sort of emotion first. A lot of it's story first or action first or whatnot. But he's always been emotion first. And I thought the end of Deadly Class really hit hard on his personal emotional investment in the book, as well as the characters' emotional impact on each other through the lens of let's all murder everybody.
Yeah.
Right. If that's not a comic book that should be on this top 15 list, then what is?
Next up, we've got Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons, from DC Comics, written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, art by Gene Ha and Nicholas Scott. Only 2 issues came out this year, but I'll tell you, the first issue by Phil Jimenez, who we had on the show and talked to him about it a little bit, was an artistic masterpiece. I was very worried about, not very worried, but I didn't know how anything could match. I didn't know how anything could match up to that, because that's one of the most gorgeous comic books I've ever seen. But Gene Ha and Nicholas Scott, in their 2 issues that have been released this year, completely matched up to that. Kelly Sue DeConnick is writing one of the most incredible stories about the Amazons' origin, about Wonder Woman's origin, about Themyscira origins. Hippolyta is a main character, and it is as revelatory a take on the Greek gods in the DC universe as Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang's take on Wonder Woman back in the day. This is an absolute masterpiece across the board.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about just something to pick up just to look at the art. I mean, it is beautiful, unbelievable art. It blows you away every time you just pick it up and look at it. It's just so stunning, and it's just so worth it.
I can imagine someone picking up the a big leather-bound version of this book, blowing the dust off it and sitting down and really paging through it in some post-apocalyptic future dystopia.
Yeah. Is Rick Remender alive in this scenario? I'm just curious.
It's crazy. It's actually right. It's Rick Remender who's pulling it off, and he dies reading it. And then Pete's there to be like, Rick, super tight bananas or whatever.
Deadly Class was good. Just wanted to let you know. All right. Next up, coming in at number 8, The Closet, from Image Comics, written by James
JT4.
Art by Gavin Fullerton. Justin, take it away on this one.
This was a 3-issue series, which you don't really see a lot of 3-issue series, but sometimes that's all the books you need to tell this terrifying story about sort of the everyday horror we create in our lives because of the flaws that we all have as people. And I love this. I thought it was got into this main character's sort of life in a way where he was so flawed, and then you saw it just play out over and over again, while laid on top of that was this great horror situation that his son was in. I just love this. This is one of the books that has really stuck in my brain since I read it.
Yeah, I completely agree, to the point where when it ended at the 3rd issue, I was like, can't wait for the next issue. What's going to happen? And to end on, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but such a bummer, down, sad note, in retrospect, was a really brave choice. It was very emotional, and it didn't shy away from making its characters look and feel bad across the board, which is you shouldn't undervalue that. That is a hard thing to do in comics, but it really connected on an emotional level.
I also love that it was too scary for Pete.
Yes.
Yeah, Fullerton really bringing the heat on this one.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, those designs, particularly the closet. If you're going to call a book the closet should be scary. And
look at it; it's scary. Look at that, all the stars and I guess a moon and a couple other circles.
Probably planets, but
they could be planets. But right now they're just circles. Pete, I don't know. You're our artist guy. What do you think? What do you think? Are those circles or planets on
planets? They're planets.
Okay,
pancakes.
There it is.
Pancakes. Okay.
Pete speaks artist.
Why don't we move on to our next one, number 7, DC versus Vampires from DC Comics, written by James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg, art by Otto Schmidt. Now, to frame this up and take a little bit of the pressure off of Pete here, I know there's some controversial thoughts about the last issue, which was released today. We're going to be talking about the last issue in our Stack podcast tomorrow, but we talked about this before that. So you got 11 issues of DC versus Vampires. You got multiple miniseries. Pete, I know you went to bat for this pretty hard to talk about it.
Hold on. Before you do that, Pete, I just want to say Alex is setting you up like a parent dropping a kid off at a party, being like, okay, my son Otto,
hey, listen,
fun. My son is fun. My son is fun.
You weren't
he does
here.
Punch.
You weren't here for the pre-meeting, okay? We had a discussion about it. You're just shitting on something you weren't even there for. All right?
I'm not shitting on it. I'm not shitting on it.
More of this delicious cocktail that's straight bullshit.
I'm just saying Alex is setting you up to be like, my son Pete punches people in the neck, but he's super fun. Enjoy him at the party.
You don't think my parents had to do that? You don't think that my parents had to do that with me?
Okay, so could please punch us all in the neck.
Okay, so 11 issues of absolute bangers. What I loved about the first 11 issues of this was the fact that, like, you were rewarded for being a comic book fan. There were so many little things on top of an insane premise. Yes, it's all about the vampires and vampires taking over the DC world, but there were all these little cookie crumbs and rewards for comic book fans and so many amazing choices and incredible death scenes and over-the-top stuff. The art was just unbelievable. It was such a perfect combination of writing and art and brought you into this insane, cool world. And, man, I just couldn't wait for every single issue of this. Just blown away by the creativity, the hilariousness, the insane over-the-topness of it all. That was such an event that I was like, what? To, like, so surprised and in awe of. And
you liked the ending, too?
No, I didn't. I didn't like it at all. And in fact, I didn't like it so much I wanted to knock this down, if you want to be honest, and put Action Comics in its place. But what the fuck? You know what I mean? Okay?
Hey, come on.
Let me speak on it because I agree with you. I love this book. This book sort of came, like Pete was saying, out of nowhere and delivered just some of the finest superhero crossover event level storytelling. And it was just a standalone book with some additional breakout issues. And another thing, if I may speak on art for a second, the art shifted so much from the first issue, which was like sort of just the coloring was very much like this is a regular superhero story. Right. By the last issue that we just read, it's like all dark red and blacks and like super heavy because the book itself sank each issue into a darker world for our heroes, while at the same time still maintaining great comedy, great character-driven moments. I love this book from top to bottom, and reading the 12th issue, I thought it was great. I thought it was excellent. I thought it carried on the
Well, I look forward to arguing with you later on the stack about this.
So I just want to say, for people who loved every issue up until this one and are listening to this right now, I think you're going to love the last one, and I'm sure Pete just has some nit to pick about it, and we'll find out on the stack.
Well, this is our best comics of 2022, so we're going to move on to the next one. I'll admit, in advance, this is a little bit of a cheat, and I'll explain why in a second. Number 6, The Massive Verse from Image Comics. This includes multiple books, including Radiant Black, Radiant Red, Radiant Pink, Rogue Sun, The Dead Lucky, a couple of other ones. It says here on this poster, Inferno Girl Red, and there's a couple of upcoming books as well, but This is a rapidly expanding superhero universe that we've talked about almost every single issue of. And it started in this place where we described it as, this feels like a fresh, new Invincible is essentially what it is. But it has grown in so many different ways as it's gone in different respects. It's also delivered some of my favorite single issues of the year, frankly. There's an issue that I've talked about incessantly of Rogue Sun, which played with time loops and choose your own adventure, which was phenomenally creative. There was an issue of Radiant Black that had multiple timelines running on the same page. So not only are they delivering some really, really solid superhero stories and some very emotional ones, particularly over The Dead Lucky, which is dealing with PTSD in particular from war, just the general idea of that in veterans. Well, it's a sci-fi war. It's not like, you know what I mean. Anyway, my point being that it's delivered on so many different levels, from being a cohesive superhero universe that's telling an enormous story, that delivers emotional things, delivers things creatively, but also, not to use a buzzword, but from a transmedia perspective, there was one thing where they have a plot line in an issue where they're filming a viral video starring, I don't remember, some C-list actor, and they actually, if you scan the QR code, they had a secret animated video on YouTube. There's a book coming up called No One that's a mystery set in the massive universe that's going to have a companion podcast that's going to run alongside of it. So it's really hard to scale up this quickly with anything, as any movie studio who's been like, we're going to be the next Marvel has seen. The fact that they've done this in comics is ludicrously impressive.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's, as far as big events, crossovers, all this has been such a consistent event, and every single issue they've put out has really delivered in different kinds of ways. First off, though, the art has just been so amazing and such a cool stylized choice that has really worked. But also just they zoomed in, zoomed out, played with different characters in such cool ways. It was really, really impressive to read. We were just really blown away with the achievement that they accomplished with this.
And I think it's something that we've been trying to crack, why books like this have found such success so quickly, because it's everybody wants to do what the Massiverse is doing right now. And I think the answers I've come up with at this point are, it's super consistent, it's super focused on a specific sort of central power set and mystery and characters, and spinning out and just adding intricate details to each one as we go, and really using an issue or a couple issues to really do some narrative tricks, like the Rogue Sun issue that Alex was talking about. So it's just very deliberate, very focused, which I think is really hard to do, and the pacing is excellent across the board.
Yeah. Next one, coming in at number 5, Nightwing from DC Comics, written by Tom Taylor, art by Bruno Redondo et al. Justin, you want to talk about this?
No surprise, this is the other Tom Taylor book we were talking about, and the fact that pairing Tom Taylor with Dick Grayson, with Nightwing, a character that is purely driven by heart, is sort of the Batman with a little bit more that we can get behind. Maybe that's a controversial thing to say, but he's a crime fighter who we believe in him. It's not about his frailties, the damage that's been done to him. He's all radiant energy and good vibes. And I mean, the central thing for me in this book is just the great action, the interesting art, and panel breakdowns that we've seen. And his relationship with Barbara Gordon has been just teasing that sort of those rom-com moments throughout here. I've really loved.
Yeah, this has just been, every single issue of this has just been so good. Just so much fun, so much action, so creative, so well drawn, and artistically put together. It has just been such a pleasure to read every one of these issues this year. Just impossible not to put this on this list. It has been so consistent and so impressive.
Well, at the same time, just a great new supervillain for Nightwing has been slowly building throughout this entire run. And we're just going to get that exploding onto these pages sometime next year, I think.
Yeah, great relationship stuff. Really got me in the feels a couple times.
There you go. Number 4, Punisher from Marvel, written by Jason Aaron, art by Jesus Saiz and Paul Azaceta.
I'll handle this one.
Oh, take it away.
Okay.
Yeah. No, this has been, taking a character that you may or may not love and bringing him to the forefront in such a cool, amazing way. I've learned new things about the Punisher that I didn't know.
Apparently he's like mad.
Just really impressive what they're doing with this character in this, and also really impressive the art and the storytelling that's happening. I've been so happy as a Punisher fan with this book, and Jason Aaron is absolutely killing the game.
I agree. I think Jason Aaron, I really love Jason Aaron, and his take on the Punisher has been putting him in positions where it's not just so one-sided and one-directional. Yeah. It's him sort of between a rock and a hard place, and it's just a new way of using this character. So I have enjoyed it, and I think it does deserve a spot on our list. I do think there are too many ghost sticks, though, in general, like on this book. Just like it feels like it's covered in them, and not. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like, Pete, you wouldn't like that, but I guess you love it.
What's really, not to interrupt this ghost stick discussion, but what's really working for me about this Punisher run is the level of difficulty that Jason Aaron and company have placed for themselves. And what I mean by that is retcons are really hard to do effectively. And he is not only bringing back Maria, Punisher's wife, which is a huge deal. If you know anything about the Punisher's origin.
It's his Uncle Ben. It's his Uncle
there you
Ben.
Go. So that's a pretty huge deal. And making that work emotionally, he's not only turning Punisher essentially to the side of evil, or at least tempting him towards the side of evil, which is also a very hard thing to do, but thanks to these beautifully drawn backstories with Paul Azaceta that take us all the way back to Frank's childhood, it's showing us this idea, and this is the biggest run cut of all, like this idea that, he was not created the day of that picnic in Central Park. This is something that he's been slowly groomed over his entire life by the hand to be worked into this position he is in right now. And the fact that that's working on multiple emotional levels, both for Maria, who we've delved more into in these most recent issues, but also particularly for Frank, a character who is known for being stoic and shooting guns, is beyond impressive.
Yeah, I mean, what it's like, it's not just saying the Punisher is doing these things, it's showing the Punisher kind of like in different ways and what he means to different people. Like if he was in charge of the hand, what would that mean and what would he do with it? And then also you have Ares, the god of war, and what Punisher means to him. Like, it's all these different relationships that we've never really thought about, and exploring them in such new creative ways. I just so impressive.
What I love about it is it feels like so much of, I think Garth Ennis broke the Punisher open a little bit when it was like, no, look, he was like this before. It was a war story, and he came back with that energy. And what I like about this, like Alex was saying, is it takes it back even further and have it placing it in for his entire life. But I think the real genius, the masterstroke there, is having Maria telling that story. So it ties her into that, and her being the one when they first met that sort of gave him peace, because that really sets up so well that her dying isn't just a tragedy that pushed him into a lifelong quest of revenge, which we've seen before. It actually just took away the one thing that was keeping him in place. So it added this great essential piece to the Punisher story. I think it is just really, it's a version of his origin that I want to believe more than the story before. But again, just a couple too many ghost sticks.
Number 3, Rain from Image Comics, written by David Embure, based on a story by Joe Hill, art by Zoe Thorogood. This is an adaptation of a short story by Joe Hill that really got blown out beautifully by David Embure over the course of a couple of issues, set in a world beset by rain that is turning into nails and immediately kills people. It is a love story. It is a heartbreak story. There's a little bit of a mystery story in there, and it is all elevated by absolutely mind-blowing art by Zoe Thorogood throughout the book. This is a perfect adaptation that expands on the original material.
Yeah, this was such a cool, creative story, something that we don't see a lot in comic books. It was just so beautifully drawn, so beautifully written. There was just so many powerful moments in this insane kind of premise. It's just one of those things where we stopped and talked about what stuck out over the year. This one was something that always came up in the discussions and was just so unique and so well done. Thorough good, more like thorough unfucking believable.
Oh, that's good. Thorough Super Type Bananas, a name that will probably be on the cover of the comic by the release of the volume. I agree. I mean, this is fantastic, surprising, unsettling the whole time, but always a nice story. And putting a romance that is like that there's a twist in at the end of the first issue at the center of all 5 issues was a surprise that really, really worked, I thought.
Yeah. Next up, coming in at number 2 is The Human Target from DC Comics, written by Tom King, art by Greg Smallwood. Justin, talk about this one.
I mean, this book, we talked about every issue of this. It's just fine. And I mean that in like, it's just like a refined, just excellent comic book. It is top tier. It's like drinking a top shelf cocktail. It's drinking a perfect martini. It's Tom King, Greg Smallwood on art, bringing us a superhero story with all of the gravitas and the suaveness of a great James Bond movie. It's a sexy comic. It's a comic that makes you feel like you're in a romance that is heated, and you feel it with the characters. All this is happening while at the same time our main character is slowly dying. It's got high stakes. It's just another way that Tom King has taken a character from the DC universe, made a choice for them, and then told us a story that changes everything for the way we look at this character and the DC universe in general. It's just so good.
It also is taking the Justice League International characters who are generally thought of as the funny Justice League, treating them seriously, but not necessarily in a deadly serious way so much as something that honors the way that the characters are and the way that they relate to each other. Tom King has this writing tick where he takes characters you love and finds the absolute worst aspects of them, but a lot of it is to challenge what you think of them and how you think about the things that they did, rather than just, oh, this is a fun lark of a comic, I'm having a good time. It's really looking back at it and re-examining that and treating them like real people and giving them real characteristics, which is really interesting. It's
well, and I think I think the flawed nature of those characters and the fact that they are sort of a punchline helps the story, helps the noir detective aspects of it, where they are coming in there and they're sort of fucking around a little bit, and it makes it so much more fun to read.
Yeah,
it's such a kind of impressive whodunit with art that is just pulls you into this kind of sexy genre, 007 kind of feel in such an interesting way that isn't kind of making fun of anything. It's just you're each issue you're getting more and more information as you pull deeper into the story. It's just really impressive from top to bottom.
Yeah. And now it's time to reveal our number 1 comic of the year.
Probably
predictable.
Probably a predictable number 1 pick.
Well, not necessarily, because I do think, well, we'll get to it. Not totally predictable for 1/3 of us, but I think we all agreed, and it came out very easily as number 1 when we tallied up our votes and everything. Here we go. Number 1 is Do a Power Bomb.
Do a Power Bomb!
From Image Comics by Daniel Warren Johnson. And I say this because Pete was very early on the Daniel Warren Johnson beat. We definitely agreed. We loved the books that he was putting out. Pete loved him for the very first moment. But Pete, take it away. Why was this book our number 1 book of the year?
Because you think like, oh, it's about wrestling. It's not. It's about family. It's about love. It's about sacrifice. Plus over-the-top wrestling. They wrestle, spoilers, but they wrestle God.
They wrestle. Spoiler, they wrestle.
They wrestle God, and it's crazy, but it's so touching. It's so moving. The art is fantastic. There's so much action. There's just... this has everything, just everything you want in a story, and it delivers. There's a couple issues where you're like, where is this going? This doesn't look like it's going to end well. It's just so impressive what's achieved in this arc and as this story. I cannot recommend this enough. It is just so powerful and moving. Love the heart in this. It's fucking beautiful, man.
It really is. I don't want to just throw this on there, but if you guys agree with me, I just want to say I feel like this is really the year of the artist. And this book shows it because the pages that Daniel Warren Johnson brings here, like, it feels like you're on the edge of a cliff looking into these splash pages that he does with these epic wrestling moves and with, like Pete's saying, a story about family, a super heightened, intense. It does, much like Murder Falcon, it feels like someone is just literally riffing on an electric guitar in the middle of a wrestling ring, and you're just sitting there listening to it the whole time.
And also, this book made me cry multiple times
100%.
While reading it. The way that Daniel Warren Johnson is able to go from action directly into the deepest wells of emotion possible, sometimes literally turning on a page or turning on a dime for it, is absolutely beautiful. Just to reemphasize, when we were talking about the list, we turned in our choices. We were like, okay, so Do a Powerbomb is number one. What's the rest of the list? So this was an obvious.
All three of us.
All three of us. So there you go. And that is it. That is our top 15 books for the year.
Now, we probably each have some honorable mentions we want to shout out real quick, right?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered all of it. So we're probably
No, I think we have a couple probably that I just want to read.
I actually
not to be a Pete.
No. I did actually want to bring up one thing first. This was a comment from Ben the Border Collie. I think I tend to be more of a Marvel guy, but DC seriously killed it this year. This is something that we discussed when we were doing the stack, because we did try to, like, as much as possible, have some sort of representation, so it wasn't like all DC or all Marvel or all Image, and shake it up a little bit. I know we didn't have a lot of other publishers other than that, even though there were a lot of books that we did like from other publishers. But we talked a little bit about the fact that, yeah, there wasn't really a lot of Marvel on here. In fact, on the end list, there's Punisher, and that's it. Why do you guys think that is? Why was there less Marvel this year?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Daredevil as well, but I just think it's not our fault that DC did better work this year. You know
no
what
one's
I mean?
blaming us.
I'm just saying,
I kind of think it was our fault.
We got to call it like we see it, and they were just bringing some amazing stuff.
I mean, if I had to put it to drop some ideas on it, because it's hard. There's so many comics. It's hard to say like one line is better than another. But I think it's Marvel's stuff. I felt like this year was bigger, and so it was easier to get a little lost in it. I think especially like X-Men feels like there's just so much going on. It's hard to really focus in, and there's been a lot of books that we like, but it's hard to really focus in and get specific with that. And for whatever reason, it feels like DC has been able to get a little bit, really take a second and like Nightwing, Superman, Son of Kal-El, a book that we didn't talk about, Action Comics.
Action Comics for real.
Another book that I feel like was able to tell huge stories while maintaining the central focus on Superman's heart. Both that was Kal-El and Son of Kal-El and the original Superman. So it just feels like maybe the formula shifted a little bit, because I feel like in the past we've talked about how Marvel is so great at feeling like we're riding with our characters and focused in on what they're going through. And DC was always caught up on these big epic events. And it feels like that maybe flipped a little bit this year.
I think I'd also throw out there that I think Black Label, not just in terms of the stuff that's being put out on the line, but the way that it is challenging everybody else to up their game at DC is really working in their favor. Another couple of books while we're doing honorable mentions. I know in the discussion we talked about both of the Suicide Squad Black Label books, Get Joker and Blaze, that were really good. That stuff, obviously, they can't do in the main line, but I do think having the opportunity to flex yourself artistically, flex yourself story-wise, they've been doing a lot of digital comics as well, and they've been experimenting with that. They're just in more of an experimental phase, which Marvel is not necessarily in. I think there's good books coming out. She-Hulk, Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty. That's the one with Steve Rogers.
Loving those.
Is awesome. There's a lot of really good
Al
books.
Ewing Ant-Man was great.
Al Ewing Ant-Man, yes, we talked about that one as well. That was awesome.
A book I am always talking about, Jed McKay's work with the Black Cat universe, I feel like is really awesome. And Jed McKay's one of those creators I feel like is will be a star in the next year or two.
But I think the thing that you'll notice, the stuff that isn't on here from DC, and this is nothing against the Knock the Creators because a lot of people involved, but like a Dark Crisis isn't on there, or a Shadow War, or things like that. I think those big crossovers are not popping in the same way. And to your point, Justin, that's a lot of what it feels like Marvel is putting out, while DC, you have those big events, but the other stuff is sort of outnumbers it and certainly outperforms it, at least critically.
And let me just throw out a couple others that I really love this year, and maybe we'll talk about in the next year. Department of Truth continues to be awesome.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Chroma, a new book I think that come out that has been fantastic. 20th Century Men, Dennis Camp's book that we've talked about a bit, I think is so good, so dense, really great. And one that feels, Alex, I know you like this book, Lonesome Hunters, the book with the older, like reluctant Harry Potter type guy with a sword and the young counterpart that he meets up with. Fantastic first few issues. Looking forward to a long run. If you love Hellboy, that's a book for you.
And those are all good books, but they're not the best comic books of the year, unfortunately.
Come on,
so why don't we do a brief version of this? We'll move quickly to our next section, which is my favorite section, because you all make it up as your audience questions. Whoop. And for audience questions, although, again, we're going to try to run through this as quickly as possible, drop a question in Q&A over here on Crowdcast, or you can do just drop a question over on YouTube. But in the meantime, what are you drinking, guys?
Well, we should shout out Stray Bullies on his drink, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He made us a super tight bananas. Wow, what a year it's been drink. As you can see, I finished most of it. It has some Campari. It has some cranberry juice, a little champagne, and other things.
It looks very good.
Ooh, it looks delicious.
It's very delicious.
I'm drinking an Imperial Stout from my farm.
Did you just write it on there? Is that really what it's called? It seems like you just named it.
No, my CSA, where I get a bunch of vegetables every couple weeks, also makes beer. And boy, do I like that part of it. So it's Imperial Stout. It's a nice, hoppy, rich stout.
Oh, jeez, we have the audio. Zalman's taking a piss over here.
I can't get up for hours. What do you expect me to do?
Not put the mic down on it, Ghosted.
Yeah, jeez. Speaking of piss, I'm drinking a Budweiser.
Wow. Pete, what's happened to the fridge? End of the year blues?
Well, I'm over at my rent's house, so my dad doesn't have a
less
exactly
cool
huge
fridge
palette of yeah.
I just going to throw it over here to two things follow up on our top 10 actual 15 list before we get to the questions. This is over on YouTube. Stray Bean says, what about 8 Billion Genies?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely in the mix. We love that book. That's a great book. Just did not make the top 15. And Jerry Jolly says, what did you think of the many lives of Layla Starr?
Yeah.
I'll just throw it out there as a little bit of a tease. Maybe that's going to be in our best trade collections that we're revealing tomorrow on the stack.
Because I think the monthly comics came out last year, and the trade came out this year. That's
the trade came out like in January or just at the beginning of February or something.
Yeah.
So and Patrick Werner, as we continue to get questions, listen, here's the thing. Again, my list was like 50 long. It was so hard to narrow this down to the point where it's like, I don't know, I'm just going to throw stuff in here because I got to move forward.
We love almost all comics.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. You know that. If you listen to us, there's very little hate out here.
Yeah. But Patrick Werner says, why not Something is Killing the Children for top 15? We did talk a little bit about throwing in like the Something is Killing the Children verse, including House of Slaughter and House of... what's the one that coming out this week?
It's also House of Slaughter, isn't it? It's like a one-shot special that really sets the table.
House of Slaughter and House of Slaughter. There you go. Anyway, yes, lots of good stuff. Again, it just didn't quite make it. Okay, here we go. This is Stray Bullet says, what series are you most looking forward to for 2023?
Ooh, the future.
I don't know. I'm very focused on the week ahead, man.
Well, I'm very excited about the showdown that's brewing in Punisher, where we're going to get like the Daredevil versus Punisher. So that'll be. I'm very excited about that.
It's Book of Slaughter, not House of Slaughter.
Book of Slaughter. There you go.
Book of Slaughter. There we go.
Looking toward the future, looking forward to Fall of X is coming. It seems like this next year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. There's also Summer of Symbiotes, which sounds like, maybe they'll be in some swimsuits or something like that.
Yeah, super fun. I would also say there's a book coming out tomorrow called Timeless, which sets up some Kang stuff in the Marvel Universe, which I think is going to be cool. I mean, continued love for our DC books that we've been liking, I think, will be fun.
I was going to throw it out to the Superman line in particular, which seems very exciting in the new year. I think that's going to be very cool. So there you go. Got a couple over on YouTube. Stray Bean says, why is so much of comic book online criticism just older readers complaining about new books sometimes before the book is even published? What's wrong with comics where that content has an audience? That's a great question. What do you guys think?
That is a great
I
question.
certainly have opinions on it.
I'm not sure what he's saying there. What do you mean?
So, actually, let me give a little bit of too much information frame on this. But he's basically saying, particularly on YouTube, there's a lot of people that are like, here's why Marvel sucks. This sucks. Bad, bad, bad. This is bad. And that's the whole YouTube video. And they do the same thing every single time. There's entire channels based on it. They're, frankly, enormously popular and get way more traffic than we do. But I will tell you, this is the too much part, but there's a thing that I have for YouTube. There's a plugin that does AI generated stuff. And it's some of it is to help out with search engine optimization. So there's certain tips in terms of getting ranked in Google and YouTube and all of that stuff. I know this is very cool. But the main thing is they also make recommendations for headlines based on your headline, body text that is usually insane and hilarious. It makes me laugh. But the big thing that I wanted to mention this for is they also have a thing where they give daily ideas of videos, things that they think are going to work for your channel. We have a comic book channel, as you're well aware. We talk about comic books, we talk about movies and TV
Does
shows.
it say we should talk about comic books?
Well, the thing is, the large majority of the ideas are Wakanda Forever, why it sucks. She-Hulk is the end of the MCU. And those are at least 25 to 35 of the 50 suggested headlines that they have.
But that's all clickbait.
It's all clickbait, but it's clickbait because it baits clicks. That is the thing. And I think at least part of it, to answer this question very specifically, is a self-perpetuating system in terms of that stuff works so people lean into it, so they keep doing it, so people keep clicking on it, and it fosters this idea of people being negative and gross about all these things. And frankly, that's Straight Bullet says, I'm pretty sure that was Alex's every episode review of She-Hulk.
We're getting really double roasted in the comments.
I was really trying. I was trying.
Well,
I
let
think,
me say,
we try to be honest with our
She-Hulk was great, man.
No, but I think it's an outrage driven. I think because comic books and all of these characters, everyone's passionate for them. They have a strong connection to them. That's why they're popular.
They grew up with them.
Yeah, I feel like comic books, superheroes, everything, it cuts through to a lot of core values that we as fans have, where it's about purity, doing the right thing. It's tied up with our right and wrong. In a world where it's hard to see good and evil in day to day, when it's all just gray in the middle, we return to comic books and any comic book related superhero content to give us those moral drives. So anything that sort of is this sucks outrages us, and we tune into it, and that drives the cycle. And I think so that's why that works. I think my point of view, or maybe our point of view, is we have our internal arguments, but it's mostly built around our personal fandoms. But at the end of the day, we love this stuff, even the stuff that we don't love as much as other people.
Dedicated so much time and energy to it.
A lifetime for it. So I'm always this is what is cool about this, or I want to highlight something that I'm excited about that not enough people are seeing or whatever, rather than just being taking down something that bothers us is not fun. So maybe people in the comments talking about She-Hulk, the Disney Plus show, and we weren't super positive about that, I would say, but we were literally trying to like it the whole time, but we're bothered by some things about it. So that is not to me the same as the outrage that Stray Beans is talking about. That is just fans being disappointed in something, but still trying to eke out a win in there.
Well, and I think also the other thing that we understand because we've talked to so many people, and I do think these are people who have not talked to people, maybe don't have the same perspective on it, is the amount of effort that goes into literally anything that's being put out. Like, even an indie comic that one guy made in his room and doesn't even know how to properly do a Kickstarter, he still worked on it, and he put some time on it and some effort into it. And
it's really hard.
It's very hard to do this stuff. Yes. So when you get to a level where you're doing something for a Marvel or DC or an Image or Dark Horse or anything like that, there's already a level of craft going on there. So it's very hard to 100% fuck something up. That is incredibly hard to do. So we might not like something, but we still understand it takes time, it takes effort. There's multiple people involved in making this thing, and that's true of anything. So,
and just one last thing, I think there's a difference between not liking a choice that something's made and something being of poor quality.
Yes.
And for me, like, if someone doesn't make a choice I like, that doesn't bother me. I'm just like, oh, interesting. I would not have done that. Let's see where this goes. If something is of poor quality, that's a whole nother thing. And that's like, oh, they were trying and it just didn't work out. So I think that's an important distinction.
Let's go to something over here on Crowdcast. What are some of your favorite examples of books that take a hard genre shift? From Kevin.
Interesting.
Hard genre shift.
This coming off of the That Texas Blood conversation. And I think it is actually quite rare for a book to take a hard genre shift in that way. But I think that's also why we like DC versus Vampires so much, is because it made step by step sort of a huge genre shift from like superhero story that involved vampires into post-apocalyptic relationships, but I meant more the post-apocalyptic world that it eventually shifted into sort of quickly.
Great.
No other response?
No, I don't know. I'm having a hard time. This is a really good question, but I can't.
Because it's one that,
explicitly
because usually when it kind of like sets it up like this is a genre we're going to play in. Kevin's right. There are ones that take surprising turns and impressive stuff that you don't see coming. But, nothing.
One that I'll throw out there, how about Daredevil? Because we talk about this all the time. Almost every writer who comes in on Daredevil, granted, some of them might expand on the tone of others, but they certainly shift in different ways. Mark Waid's run, obviously, a huge shift from everything that came before. So, I don't know. I'll throw that out there. I'll
throw out, this was intentional, but another book that I think we enjoyed but didn't make our list was Love Everlasting, the Tom King romance take. And that was very much like, Tom King's doing romance comics. And after the second issue, it was like, oh no, there's more going on here. There's some sort of multiversal time travel thing happening here. And that's a genre shift. A book that sort of said it was one genre and then pulled the rug, I thought was really cool.
I don't know if this really answers it, but I know, I remember that Flintstones comic that was a couple years back was so different than I thought it was going to be.
Mark Russell.
It took so many big chances and paid off so well. It was really impressive.
Yeah. We got a bunch more that are piling up here on YouTube. Just to mention, John Dorsey brings up Zdarsky and Jimenez on the flagship Batman. That has been phenomenal. That was definitely on my list as well. Beans mentions Gaiman's Miracle Man is finishing up in 2023. Fingers crossed. And then we've got from Frederico Rosa, what's your expectation about Marvel DC movie content for 2023? I think Marvel had a low year in 2022, but DC's calendar for 2023 feels weird. Yes.
I think Marvel did have a weird year. I think they're going to start to get it together a little bit in the next year, since this year was like, let's show all this stuff that doesn't really connect. And I think it has to start connecting next year. I think DC, if you've been watching the news about that, it makes sense. It's a little bit chaotic. They had a huge creative shift at the top. We're going to get some movies that were done under a previous regime, and then some big changes are going to happen. So I think it is going to be another disjointed year for DC.
Well, it almost seems like those choices aren't going to come into effect until like a year later.
It does almost seem that way.
But but there are big changes. I mean, Marvel cranked through a ton of content in their movies, and now it's kind of like, what do we do? where do we go? You know,
I love when my favorite creators are just cranking through content. You know?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm interested to see on what Marvel does next and where they kind of find their worlds to explore. You know, Miss Marvel not only was an unbelievable comic book, but I was impressed with their TV show, and then it took a weird twist with that last shot and the closet switch, but they can really start tying some things in there, you know?
Yeah. This is from Crowdcast over here. Randolph Washington Jr. says, Pete or the other guys, I guess, who are some artists you're really excited to see new work from?
Wow.
Well, I mean, I'm always very excited when you got the Botchman, Botchalo on art. Like, he's one of
the Botchman.
Oh yeah, the fucking Botchman, dude.
I don't know if he's gonna love that nickname. It sounds like he's making mistakes.
You know, but yeah, I've been really. Anytime he's on something, I show up. Just because his art is so unique and different. Also, R Squared, Riley Rosmo, is just super type bananas, so creative, like cartoonish, but there's also so much heart in his art. It just it makes me want to read it.
Is it the year of the artist or the year of the artist's nickname?
Well, I mean, if I'm going to be there, there's going to be some nicknames. You know what I mean?
That's true. Pete famously grew up surrounded by nicknamed friends. Oh,
right.
Uh,
No one knew each other's names. It was all just Dan the Sex Man or whatever they use.
One that I'll give a shout out to that I'm going to mention also on the Stack podcast that we mentioned here, but Zoe Thorogood. I don't know what she is up to, but her stuff on Rain is phenomenal. She also put out an amazing graphic novel that, again, we will talk about on tomorrow's Stack podcast. I'm so excited to see what she does next.
A shout out to Nick Dragotta. Looking forward to more from him. Pete's guy, Dan Mora. Let's see some more of that stuff.
Ooh, yeah. Mora, please. This is we got a bunch of things here. Any movie, TV show highlights from this year? Favorite TV show or movies? I actually have a list. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I thought the Disney stuff was great. You know,
like Cinderella and stuff.
No, you asshole.
yeah.
I'm talking
Gotta
about Moon
give
Knight.
it up.
I'm talking about fucking She-Hulk. You know,
for me, there's only one show in 2022, and Ben the Border Collie nailed it in the comments with One Way Out. Andor took the trophy this year. A show that I loved, cried about, like was just so intensely involved in.
I'll very quickly read through. This is another one of those lists that I was like, I just got to put this together at a certain point. But my top TV of the year: Heartstopper, Better Call Saul, The Patient, The After Party, Interview with the Vampire, The Rehearsal, A League of Their Own, House of the Dragon, Andor, and Stranger Things. And for movies,
Stranger Things, I agree with.
Great. For movies, I did this like a month ago, so it doesn't include some recent stuff, but The Batman, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Nope, Weird, The Al Yankovic Story, After Yang, X, Top Gun Maverick, Turning Red, The Bob's Burgers movie, and Fresh. So there
Also,
nice.
this might be the last time I get to say it, but Wakanda Forever.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Why is it the last time you can say it?
Well, you know.
Year's ending, can't say stuff anymore. This is from Nelson Martinez over on YouTube. Are there any January shows you guys are looking forward to that have been announced so far? Also, thanks for all the content. Happy New Year's, fellas.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for listening and give us a shout out.
And he says maybe like The Last of Us. Nelson, I've seen The Last of Us, so I can't say anything about it yet.
Wow. You can't say anything? What a weird flag.
Reviews are embargoed until January 10th.
I'm excited for The Last of Us. I do think that's going to be good. And I'm in the mood for some zombie stuff, I will say. I've been trying to catch up on some movies. I watched The Fabelmans, which I thought was...
Fabelmans?
Sort of a weird beginning, but thought it really put it together by the end.
Did they? This is getting into spoilers.
We're going to get into Week and Geek where we're going to talk about this.
I'm just curious. Like, did they get their fable powers by the end of the movie? Because that was one of my favorite parts of the comic book.
Yes, by the end of it, a young Steven Spielberg can make just movies happen by touching fingers.
Yeah. Great. There you go. Looking forward to Shadow and Bone season 2 is coming out. I love that show, and I'm very excited about that.
More Willow.
Willow. I was just going to say I'm enjoying Willow. Can't wait for more.
Heartstopper season 2. Very excited, nervous about that because things get real dark in the graphic novel. If you
can't wait for Ted Lasso. Hopefully,
we'll see. We'll see, man. Severance season 2. What about that?
Well, that's going to come like December 29th of next year.
Probably. All right. Let's see. We got another one here from Crowdcasters from Jay Sinison. Was this book for book the best year of Superman comics in a long time?
Yes,
100%.
Yes.
Easy question. Thanks.
Great question.
And
Action Comics, Superman, Son of Superman, like it was all killing it.
People talk about how Superman's hard to write, and I think this past year proved it's not hard per se. It's just you have to make some big choices. And I think Philip Kennedy Johnson really did that. Like, made some big choices and told a great Superman story that wasn't just about Superman. It was a great ensemble. And then, of course, we've already talked about Son of Kal-El and how just focused in on a real character and all the emotional choices that they are making over the course of it, and crushed it as well.
Yeah, Washington Jr. and Supergirl, you're right. Just so many.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother, that's like a fairy tale.
Yeah, it was just...
just real quick, Kevin mentions I'm excited about the Doctor Who specials, given the just announced Comics Connection. Yes, excited for those. Those are coming out in November. There was something else. Also, last season of Riverdale's coming out. That's going to be a big deal for us, I feel like. So there you go.
Yeah, do you think you guys are going to watch it?
I don't know. I'm busy.
Still deciding.
It takes place in the 50s, right?
Yeah. Yes, it sure does. We got one last one here. I'm glad that we said this would be nice and short, so I'll end with a nice, easy question.
Dude, this show's like 3 hours long, bro.
I know. From David Quinley, most of my comic book knowledge is from the 20th century. What do you think have been the big changes in comic books the last 15 or 20 years? And what age are we in? Silver Age, Bronze Age, gone Bronze Age, I'm hearing?
We're in the artist age, where we don't need writers. We just need amazing artists.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. And this is nothing against David's question, which is a totally really good question. But they were like, we're going to do some real quick questions. He's like, real quick, summarize the past 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.